Hello, Inspi family. Thank you so much for joining me on yet another episode of the Inspi Words podcast. And I know, guys, it's been a long time since I actually released a podcast. But you may know I moved to another province, I started a new job, and that has been quite hectic. But I'm back and I'm bringing you more episodes and I'm bringing you more content that will inspire you, that will encourage you, that will help us do, be, and live better. Today, in this podcast, I am talking about the role that the environment plays in our growth and development, personal growth and development, as well as in our achievement and flourishing. For most part of the first half of the year, I've been talking about giving your dreams a chance. We've been talking about setting goals. We've brought guests that spoke about setting goals, achieving those goals, and dealing with some failures. And in all of that conversation and some conversations that I've been, listening to around on social media, around the topic of achieving your goals and achieving your dreams, because I think that's something that I'm very passionate about. I really want to understand what it takes to succeed, but there's something that I have discovered, and that's what's going to be the topic for today's episode: the role that the environment plays in our growth and development, and also in our ability to achieve our goals and to flourish in our lives. So why is this important? I think it's an important topic to talk about because currently you may agree with me or even disagree, but I think you would agree with me that in what is being said about what it takes to succeed, what it takes to achieve goals and dreams, there is quite a strong emphasis on hard work, right? We are encouraged to work hard, we are encouraged to put in the time, almost as if hard work is all that it takes to achieve these big dreams, to bring our visions to life, and to actually give our dreams a chance. But I have found that, as you may know, if you have read the book, hard work is not all that it takes. There is relationships, which is why human connections matter. I talk about that in the jumpstart effect. But I also want to talk about the role that the environment plays. It's not just your hard work and your effort that helps you succeed, but the environment also plays a huge role. So I don't want you to get me wrong in this. I'm not saying hard work is not important, but I'm saying that hard work is not the only variable in the equation of success. So I'm a firm believer that we all have our dreams. I am a firm believer that we all want to succeed in life. And if you don't want to succeed, you're probably like one in a billion. I believe all human beings, in their nature, they want to be successful in whatever they do, in their pursuits of the dreams, the goals, even in just our daily lives. We want to be successful in what we do. How we define success may be different. It actually can be as different as our fingerprints. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is that we all want to succeed in whatever we do. And while many of us work hard to actually succeed, they do something. It's not that we just desire to succeed and prosper in our lives, but we actually put in the work. We work hard to achieve our dreams, to achieve our goals on a daily basis. But we don't always achieve those goals. We don't always succeed. In fact, many of us have failed in so many things. And I don't know, just think about your goals for this year. Think about your goals for this year. In the beginning of the year, many of us start the year with New Year's resolutions. We start the year with all of these grand goals and dreams that we want to achieve throughout the year. By the end of this year, I want to have lost this much weight. I want to have made this much money. I want to have saved this much. I want to have grown this much. I want to have achieved this and that and that. And that is all good. We encourage you to set goals. We encourage you to want to succeed. But it doesn't always happen. As much as we work hard to try and achieve our goals, we don't always succeed. And when that happens, many of us beat ourselves hard and we think that would have gotten different results if we just worked a little harder. And often we would have gotten different results if we worked a little harder. But sometimes it's not just the hard work. It's not that we need to work harder, because it's not always our efforts that determine whether we succeed or fail. And I want us to entertain that thought. What if what you need is not to work harder than you're already working hard, but just a simple change of environment? Your environment has a lot more to do with your ability to achieve your goals than many of us think. And I'll explain this as we go. But let me start here. Take what I call the analogy of the seed. So my wife, beautiful wife of mine, comes from Limpopo, in a small village called Mutobeki in Mulobedu. If you are from Mulobedu, please shout out to you guys. You really did me good there. So I come from Loskop, in a village in Loskop, in Escott, in KZN. And every time I visit Limpopo, there's a stark contrast between the village I come from and the villages that I see around Limpopo. They have all kinds of fruits. They have avocados, they have grapes, they have lychees, they have mangoes, they have watermelons, they have all these kinds of fruits. But back at home, we only grow peaches. We only grow peaches, maybe some figs here and there, and some mulberries here and there. The reason behind that is not that the people where I come from like peaches, figs, and mulberries more than they like mangoes, avocados, and all these other fruits. It's just that the environment where we come from doesn't enable these other kinds of fruits to grow. It's not a conducive environment for all of these other kind of fruits to grow. But when it comes to Limpopo, the subtropical climate in Limpopo enables all of these different kinds of fruits to actually grow. So it's not just about the seed that we put on the ground, because in fact we can take a seedling of an avocado tree from Limpopo and put it in our yard back at home. It would not grow. Not because the seed doesn't have the potential to grow. The potential is there, but the environment is not conducive for that kind of seed to grow. So just like a seed, your potential to thrive, your potential to succeed in life, to achieve your goals, may be limited or even thwarted by the environment that you are in. So you can have great potential, but it will not be fully unleashed until you are in a conducive environment for the kind of seed you are to thrive. Because all of us are like seeds in this case. And the environment in which we are planted as these seeds has the potential to limit the extent to which we produce fruit, which would be, in this case, our success or our achievements or our growth and development. So our growth and flourishing are not only dependent on our efforts, they also depend on the environment we are in. I'll let that sink in. Let me unpack it even further. What do I mean by the environment? It can take different forms. I have thought about it in this way. It can be one, a geographical environment in terms of, as I was making an example, coming from a village in KZN and a village in Limpopo. They have two different conditions that allow for different kinds of fruits to grow. It's the same even for us. Think about this. As someone who comes from Mqedandaba or Ecwaga, somewhere in Loskop in KZN, if I have a dream of becoming a medical doctor, I would never be able to achieve that dream until I make the decision to leave the village and go to a place, most probably a city, that has a medical school where I can study for medicine. So, in that way, the geographical location limits what I can achieve there. The geographical location, that environment, the rural environment where I come from limits what I can achieve there. And many of us have seen this phenomenon of people moving into urban areas because there are greener pastures there. Musicians have done that. They've moved to the cities like Durban and Joburg because that's where the music industry is thriving. In the US, you hear people speaking about the Silicon Valley as the heart of tech. So people that really want to succeed in the tech industry, they would go into that geographical area because all the opportunities and the things that are necessary for them to thrive are available and accessible in that kind of geographical environment. But the environment could also be social in nature. It could be the kind of friendship circles and relationships that we are moving in. Are they conducive for the kinds of dreams that we want to achieve? Are the kind of friends that we are with, the kind of social capital that we have, can we unlock value in the social capital that we have, or we just have relationships with people? So that is the social environment you are in. The Bible says bad company corrupts good character. That speaks to the social environment that you are in. The kind of people that you surround yourself with, they have an impact. John C. Maxwell says you adopt the vices of the people that you surround yourself with. So that social environment is very much important. It has quite a strong influence in terms of your growth and development. Are you surrounded with people that are challenging you to grow, or you are the best? You are on top of your social circle and everyone is looking up to you. And if that's the case, you are in an environment that does not cultivate, an environment that does not encourage you to grow. So that social environment, the relationships that we build, the people that we surround ourselves with, they form an environment that can either limit our growth and development, or it can actually encourage, promote, and cultivate in us the ability and unleash our potential. The environment can also be cultural in nature. Think about institutional cultures. There are schools that have a particular culture where it's okay to be late, it is okay to bunk classes, there aren't really consequences in that. And those kinds of school will produce a particular kind of person that might not be able to succeed and thrive in a world where there is a high value ascribed to excellence. There is high value ascribed to punctuality and all of those kinds of things. It builds habit in them that would make it difficult for them to thrive in the corporate world, for example, where time is money. So if you come from an institution that does not really build into you those kinds of skills, the work ethic and the attention to details, when you get into the world of work where those things are important, you'll be found wanting. Each workplace would have its own culture. Each company would have its own company culture. And I'll make an example. One of the things in my field, in academia, is that if you really want to be a successful academic, you've got to publish. And that is one of the things that in the higher education space is valued. And if you produce more in terms of publications, you are seen as an active scholar. You are a good academic. But the extent to which this is valued and infused into the culture of the institution is different with different universities. There are universities that, because they are part of the academy, would of course expect their academics to publish. But the pressure on those academics is not as strong as it is in other universities. And that's also because of the different kind of universities that we have. Some are what we call research intensive universities. And in those kind of universities, the culture of publish or perish is quite strong. And some are really just committed to the project of teaching and training professionals. And in those kinds of spaces, there is not as much emphasis, even though that emphasis is there, but it's not as strong as it is in what we call research intensive universities. And that is about the culture of the institution. And you can see even in other companies, the culture determines the kind of things that people will see as valuables. You can be in an institution that normalizes mediocrity, and that will limit the extent to which you excel as an employee in that institution, compared to people that are in the same field but in other institutions. So the kind of culture you are immersed in, whether it be in just the community as a whole, sometimes there is a culture that doesn't really value education that much. And because of that culture in a community, people would not necessarily pursue higher degrees. They would not necessarily pursue education as something that is valuable. And sometimes it's a culture in a family. And all of those things have an influence in shaping what you see as possible. And it can also be a spiritual environment. There might be stronghold in the spiritual environment that you are in, that really, like, spiritual forces that work against you. I'm not going to talk much on this, but it's also the spiritual environment can have an influence on the extent to which you are able to thrive and grow as an individual. So if you are not able to have an influence in terms of what happens in the spiritual environment, those forces in that spiritual world might end up overtaking the ways in which things happen in your life that actually limit or even thwart your ability to thrive and succeed. So, the main point I'm trying to make here is that in order to flourish, it's not just your efforts that are going to be important, but the environment in its different forms, as I've explained it, has to be conducive for you to thrive. So, the question might be, what kind of environment is enabling for one to thrive? What kind of environment is enabling for one to grow? There's like 5 things that I think are important for us to look for in an environment that would enable us to thrive and grow and flourish and develop as individuals. Number 1, we thrive and grow in an environment that challenges us to learn new things. Question is the environment you are in challenging you to learn new things? In my field of education, we have this theory of learning by this guy called Vygotsky. If you are a teacher, you probably have heard about this. It's called the zone of proximal development. The idea is that students learn when the activities that they are given are just above what they can do by themselves without help, but also below what they can do with help. It's something that is just outside of their comfort zone. It's just something that is outside of their abilities that stretches them just a little bit, but not too much that they feel like they are thrown into the deep and they are drowning. And in that space, that's where growth and development happens. So, if your environment is going to encourage you to grow, to thrive, to do, live, and be better, it has to be a kind of environment that challenges you to learn new things, right? That's number one. So, ask yourself as you reevaluate your environment, is your environment challenging you to learn new things? Number two, we grow in an environment that exposes us to a broader perspective of what is possible. I'm going to repeat that again. We grow and thrive in an environment that exposes us to a broader perspective of what is possible. I did a video a few weeks back about thinking outside the box. And the idea was that you cannot think outside the box if the box is what you have always known, right? So, what you are exposed to as a person has potential to limit the extent to which you can dream. You can never dream about something you don't know. So, if you have not been exposed to the fact that there are people who are pilots, you might not dream of becoming a pilot. You have to know that there is a profession of being a pilot. There is a profession of being a chiropractor. There is a profession of being a masseuse to be able to dream about becoming that. So your environment has to expose you to a broader perspective of what is possible. And that can come through the kinds of things you see, the people around that environment, the things that they have achieved, people that can be your role models that can show you that is possible. So we grow in an environment that exposes us to a broader perspective of what is possible, such that we never come to a point where we believe that certain goals and dreams can only be pursued by certain kinds of people. Number three, we grow in an environment that is affirming of our dreams and our capabilities. So if you are in an environment that makes you feel like you are incapable of doing anything, when you talk about dreaming of becoming a medical doctor, it's like, well, who has ever done it from this village? Don't overthink things, don't force things, don't try to be this big thing. Don't dream this big because you're just setting yourself up for disappointments. There are people who have been told those kinds of things because they live in an environment that is not appreciative and affirming of their dreams. But you've got to be in an environment that validates and affirms your dreams, that affirms your capabilities and your ability to achieve that dream. There are people who have grown up as young children being told that you can be anything that you want to be. There are people that have grown up being told that you can achieve anything that you put your mind to it. As much as those things can be cliches and all of that, but they have an impact in terms of the psychology of the person and their thoughts and their understanding of what they are capable of. It affirms their dreams, it affirms their capabilities, and because of those affirmations, then those kinds of people often thrive. We grow in an environment that is affirming of our dreams and capabilities. Number four, we grow in an environment where the value that we add is acknowledged and appreciated. There's a saying that says people who are appreciated will do more than what is expected. This is often the case in the workplace where when you put your your mind into your work and you apply yourself and you excel at what you do, and it never really gets acknowledged and appreciated. And of course, you do get paid for it, but sometimes you don't get paid enough. And that in itself is a demonstration that the value that you add into that business, into that company, into that workplace is not appreciated. And often at times, people who feel that they are not paid enough, people who feel that they are not appreciated, they are not acknowledged, over time, they start doing less, they start doing the bare minimum. And that in itself limits the extent to which they can thrive in the field, because now they're just doing the bare minimum. They're not growing, they're not doing more than what is expected. But people who are appreciated, they do more than what is expected. They go an extra mile to develop new skills that would add more value, because they see that the value that they add is appreciated. We see also this in the family context, where your contribution to the family, because maybe it might not be monetary in nature, is not really valued, and because of that you end up doing less and less. But you, in doing so, you are cutting yourself short. So we grow in an environment that appreciates the value that we add. And lastly, we grow in an environment that gives us access to support and resources. So, if you have a big dream and if you have a big goal that you want to achieve in your life, rest assured, if whatever dream or vision you have, you can achieve by yourself, that dream is not big enough. So, big dreams need resources, need support. And those resources and support does not always come from what you as an individual have, but it has to also come from the environment. So if we're in an environment that gives us access to resources and support, then we are able to thrive. When I was in Boston, I met one of the students who was doing his master's at Harvard University. And there was something fascinating that he shared with us. It was that Harvard has what they call an innovation lab. And that's where students with big ideas and concepts that they want to develop into a business go and they get support. Sometimes they get given funding, they get given mentorship, and that helps them to bring those ideas to life such that they can become lucrative businesses. And that's not something that is available in all other universities. And maybe not, especially in our country, we don't really have those kinds of things. Some universities might have some version of that, but it's not all universities that are able to provide that kind of space where students can come with their ideas, their concepts, their innovations, and their inventions, and actually build those concepts and get them to the market and get them, tested and tried out and improved through the support of mentors and all of these kinds of things, such that they build lucrative businesses out of those ideas. We grow and thrive in an environment that gives us access to support and resources. You might be asking yourself that I see my environment, I look at where I come from, I look at my cultural, my geographical, my social, my institutional environment, and I see that there are some of these things that are missing. So, what do you do if your environment is not conducive for your growth and development? There are two things that I would suggest. One is that you can change the environment. Sometimes the grass is actually greener on the other side. It's often said that the grass is not greener on the other side, but I think sometimes it actually is. And what you need might not be to work harder than you've been working hard before. It could just be a simple change of scenery that changes everything for you. You might need to move from, you know, one geographical area to another. I've seen people that struggled to succeed and excel in their studies at Wits and they moved to UJ or another university and they thrived. It was just a change of scenery. I've seen people changing courses and they thrive in the different course because it's not that they don't have the potential to thrive, but the kinds of environment they were in were not conducive for the kind of seeds that they are. Remember the analogy of the seed I gave in the beginning. So sometimes the grass is actually greener on the other side. It might be that you just need to change schools. It might be that you just need to change the workplace. You might need to change your friendship circles. You might have to move to another city in order to be able to be in an environment that is conducive for you to thrive, that is conducive for you to grow, that is conducive for the kind of seed that you are. But if you can't change your environment, you can improve it. So if you think about what happens in the agricultural space, if the soil is not fertile enough, the farmer would put into the soil what is called a fertilizer. So that comes from an outside environment but is put into the soil so that the soil can be fertile for the seeds that are put into the soil to germinate and grow and bear fruit. If you can't change the environment, you can improve the environment. You can outsource what you feel is missing. And what is important in order for you to be able to do that is to be aware of what is missing. Are you missing resources and support? Are you missing affirmation? Are you missing whatever, any of these things that we've spoken about that makes for a conducive environment for you to grow? What is it that is missing? So look at where else can you get that. You might not get it in the same environment, but it might mean that you've got to outsource it from somewhere else while you still remain in that environment. You might need to get a mentor, you might need to get support and encouragement from podcasts, from reading books. You might need to get exposure from reading, from watching movies that will give you a perspective, a broader perspective of what is possible. But the most important thing here is that you must be aware, develop an awareness of what is missing in your present environment that could make it an enabling environment for you to grow and thrive. Let me conclude with this. Sometimes what you need is not to work harder than you are already working hard. A simple change of scenery could be what makes all the difference. And that's what I really wanted to say through this podcast episode. And I hope it really inspired you. I hope it encouraged you and you picked a thing or two about the role that the environment plays in unleashing your potential to thrive and succeed in whatever goal you are pursuing. If you really loved any aspect of what I've spoken about, please do share this podcast with a friend. Do leave a comment below. I would really love to hear from you and get your understanding and your thoughts about what you think the role of the environment is in helping us unleash our potential to thrive and succeed in this life. But until next time, continue to give your dreams a chance.